Thank you, everyone. So good to see you and to be in this space with you all. Um, Such a good anchor for my practice and reflection practice, and I'm hoping my talk will be a good collective practice together. I will share a PowerPoint, but know that we look at our screen a lot throughout our days. Know that PowerPoint's largely for myself because I lose track of my thoughts. You don't have to be stared at the whole time. If you would like to rest your eyes, you can just look at me and I'll be reading most of the things on this slides. So here we go. Screen share. Wait, this is
Zoom, is that another jewel?
Ah.
I take refuge in the Zoom infinite light.
Oh no. How about now? Yes. So this talk is titled Affirming Agency, Exploring Mindful Inner Consent and Aligned Expression. Um, and this talk, I don't know, I feel it comes from various sources, but it largely also comes from my conversation with Paul, who's our beloved volunteer coordinator and also board president. And we talked about what good leadership looks like. And he used the acronym of ART, A-R-T, authentic, responsive, and transparent. And I hope this talk that I'm giving as a center director and hopefully as a friendly guest speaker is aligned with that. So this is me. For those of you who don't know me too well, I'm the center director. I've been serving as the center director since 2022. And I highlighted a few other elements of where I'm coming from that is relevant for tonight. Another one is that I'm a somatic experiencing therapy provider, and I'm also a translator. I'm an immigrant. I translate Korean to English, English to Korean, and that was largely my career before this role. And for those of you who are not familiar, and also it's good to just repeat it out loud, giving a shout out to Thich Nhat Hanh and Plum Village. Dallas Meditation Center's core gathering formats are inspired by Plum Village tradition, and Thich Nhat Hanh is the founder of Plum Village tradition. And Brother Chising is the founder of the Dallas Meditation Center, and his vision was to bring mindfulness and meditation practice to people of all faith and non-faith background in an earth-based way with an emphasis on creativity, music, and the arts. So please know that those are continuing tradition that we aim to honor. And speaking of honoring, we honor three values: generosity, creativity, inclusivity, as you can see in the interfaith flag above our door, and also pride flag at the sign-in table. All right, so this is my intention for the talk because, like I like to, as the title suggests, gain your consent into thinking about certain topic. Because if I just, came in too hot and start talking, like we're gonna talk about trauma, it's hard to gain consent, right? I want to create this like inner, like, oh yeah, I want to talk about this and think about this. So here's my intention. I wrote this talk because I'm concerned. I'm concerned about what's happening, like in people's individual life, the world at large. So there are three things that I'm concerned about that are coming together to create cultural vulnerability for everyone, in my perspective. And the first one is that the harmful rhetorics and practices are being unleashed into the society as it's being normalized, it's so common, and that's not okay. This combined with the breathless pace of modern life and hierarchical structures that we enter and exit throughout our lives, those combined can be a vulnerable spot because often when we are plugged into breathless pace or hierarchical structure, it's easy to dissociate from our inner experience. And mindfulness brings awareness to our inner experience. But when we are routinely plugged into those structures, it's easy to lose connection. And we don't talk about things like, I'll be elaborating more if you're not sure what I mean by inner consent and aligned expression, but there isn't enough space to collectively reflect on ideas of how do we connect to our inner feelings of what we're okay with and how to express that in a way that is aligned with your inner reality, regardless of the situation that you're in. So I wanted to create the space for to talk about this. So inner consent, what I mean by that is tuning our ability to tune into like, I'm okay with this, I'm not okay with this. I will participate this because I'm okay with this. I'm not going to participate in this because I'm not okay with this. And what I mean by aligned expression is, can you say no to the situation that you're not okay with? Can you go against the grain, go against the flow um, to what is happening if necessary? And drawing from my personal experience, our connection to how we feel, how we are okay or not okay with what's going on can be severed, it can be eroded. And aligned expression can be difficult to achieve too. How many of you have been to family dinner where you were biting your tongue or saying things slightly different from how you really feel inside, or your situation job, wherever it may be? These are hard. Those connections, staying connected with your inner reality and expressing, it's not easy, even when things are going smoother in the world at large. And especially trauma too, including moral injury, can erode your sense of connection. And things are hard, like when finance, physical security, basic foundation of your life becomes precarious, then it's also difficult to tune into your inner reality. As my mentor in somatic experiencing therapy says, most of us live in an environment that is hostile towards our nervous system. Was our body really built so that we throw ourselves around on the highway and go from one thing to another? Does that help us? Does that help us connect with ourselves? And I keep using the word vulnerable. That is because when our inner sense of inner experience is dissociated and the society at large seems to be permitting harmful rhetoric and practices, we're vulnerable because habit energy of the world, of people can misaligned energy pushing you in a certain direction can be so powerful. It's easy to accidentally get swept away, especially if you're not connected to our inner sense of self and what we're okay with, what we are not okay with. Good news. Our connection to ourselves can be revitalized with mindfulness. From my personal experience and from what I've witnessed, I know that to be true. And I'll share some of my personal experience too, based on the conversation I had with Paul, that sometimes I try to bring forth only the part that seems relevant of me, my experiences as a center director of meditation center. It has to be about meditation and calming. But today I am wanting to bring in more because I think of it as the world is calling for it. I want to be responsive to what is happening at the world at large. And I hope what I'm sharing will resonate with you and provoke some good thinking. And I want you to be safe navigating the world out there, truly connected to how you feel, what you're okay with, and being able to take the action that may be deemed impolite or that may be deemed, I don't know, like we are conditioned in so many ways. I want you to be able to express what is within you in a way that feels aligned so that we can keep asserting our agency. even as things can seem rough out there. So I will be talking about some trauma-sensitive mindfulness as a necessity, especially during this time, so that we can create a space where everybody can feel like they can tune into themselves, feeling safely. Yeah. Um, Part of the reason I'm bringing up something that might be difficult to hear is that I also believe that leaders are meant to model what is possible in the space. When we do even simple checking in, like starting with a facilitator saying their name and bowing, that modeling makes it more easy for the space and people in it to explore that format together. So that's my intention behind why I'm bringing in um, some of this potentially difficult dialogue into the class space. And my good friend, who's an artist, once said, art is permission. When you do something and model it, that's a permission to the space. So please know that that's my intention. And know that although I'll be talking about the traumatic event that happened to me and how that translated to certain behavior that could be transformed through mindfulness, I also want to make sure that everybody feels okay to hear this. So I'll be asking Lisa to ring a bell at certain points so that everybody who does not want to hear difficult content can step out the room. Please know that I created that structure. So all of that is my intention. Like imagine, like I was like, it's like going to yoga class and the whole class is intention. So thanks for hearing me out. This lengthy description of intention. And also, I also wanted to say that our talk will extend beyond our usual 20 minutes talk because I'll be peppering my talk with group reflections in the middle of the talks. So thank you for understanding. So what to expect tonight? I will be inviting you to tune into what I mean by inner consent and aligned expression. I'll also like to invite reflection on what is at stake when we lose connection to ourselves. And I also wanted to add a reflection on what it means to respect boundaries in this shared space where everybody has different relationship to different ideas. And I'll talk about trauma-sensitive space for practicing self-attunement. And there'll be more reflections on vulnerability of our connection to our inner self with my share, and we'll close a collective reflection. I've given this talk to Tuesday group and worked out time-wise, even though it sounds ambitious. Let's see what happens. So the invitation here is to explore the following questions for a few breaths each. So this is the question. How do you know you're comfortable or not comfortable with the task at hand or situation you're facing? Some example could be noticing that your heart rate is elevated, your body temperature is going up. Sometimes our eyes like to drift to the door or any exit. Emotions, ideas, image, voices. I'll hold the space for 5 breaths to reflect. How do you know when you're not comfortable with what's happening around you? The next question I invite is, well, actually, so if you know the answer, that's a really great news. If you don't know the answer, that's okay. It's some kind of investigative process over time. But the good news is that if you know those clues, if you're well aware of how your system signals you're not comfortable with certain things, that helps us to connect to our inner reality in a way that we can eventually lead to expression that is aligned with our inner reality. And the next question that I would like to pose is, how comfortable are you in saying no? Or how often do you say no? How often do you go against the flow of how the situation is unfolding? And another question, all in the same vein, is how comfortable are you going against the flow and doing your own thing, regardless of the choice of the people who are important to you, or majority of the people in the given situation? So let's reflect on how comfortable are you in connecting to yourself and doing your thing. I'll hold the space for 3 to 5 breaths that may mean many different things. So those questions were meant to hopefully reflect on how comfortable you are in expressing how you're feeling, or how your inner reality is, in a way that is aligned to you, even if it causes some frictions. And that's what I'm calling aligned expression in this particular talk. When we're situated in an environment that is hostile towards expression that does not conform to certain ideology or hierarchy, this alignment is hard to achieve, because when we don't feel safe, we have hard time speaking out what is truly on our mind. And and I'm not implying that all hierarchies are meant to cause harm or like misalignment, but rather the conditioning that comes from hierarchy can make it hard for us to speak out loud, even in the situation where we are. It would be good for everyone to speak out loud. And when we cannot align our inner reality and our outer expression, that's when we feel helpless, or when we kind of become passive, and we lose a sense of agency, and we can't act from the space of empowerment, but rather things can be happening to us, or we can become a channel of doing things that we might not find aligned with us. And I keep using the word vulnerability, and I am bringing in the sense of urgency in conversation, because this phenomenon is seen in research of psychology. This is derived from the article on pbs.org. Title is how Nazis' defense of just following orders plays out in the mind. It's talking about Milgram's experiment, where people were asked to push a button to inflict a pain to another person by the order. And people were observing how when there's someone to order another person to push the button, how responsible they felt towards the pain that the electric shock receiver was feeling upon the middle person pushing the button, uh, by abiding to the order of authority figure. And this is the part analysis that seems relevant in my mind. So this is written by Patrick Haggard, a cognitive neuroscientist at University College of London. And he was analyzing Milgram's experiment. Acting under orders caused participants to perceive a distance from outcomes that they themselves caused. Meaning people felt like, no, that wasn't fully me. I did not cause that. He continued, in other words, people actually feel disconnected from their action when they comply with orders, even though they are the ones committing the act. And they describe this distance as people experiencing their actions more as a passive movement than voluntary actions when they follow orders. It's as though they feel like the order made me do it, and it's a passive action when they follow order, and let go of the sense of responsibility of what's happening because they feel passive in that situation. So when I say vulnerability, when we are dissociated, we are vulnerable to feeling like we're passive participants, even when we are plugged into a harmful situation. And becoming aware of that to me is really important. And to not let that happen, we need to tune into ourselves, our inner compass. And our inner compass is easier to attune to. Just like anything else, you will notice that it's easy to tune into your sensations, emotions, thoughts, action urges in this space because it's a calming environment, this quiet environment, the environment that you're asked to slow down. Same, just like that, our inner compass and our inner consent is easier to attune to when the environment is calming, supportive, and respectful. And so that's why I believe in creating spaces where there's a sense of agency for everyone involved, sense of safety for everyone, and respect for everyone. And some of the concepts to me is repeating out loud so that we kind of reflect on it, because I don't see a lot of public space where this is being reflected on, is the idea of boundaries. This is a book titled, like, Miguel used to drop F-bombs regularly, so I'm gonna drop it once. Unfuck your boundaries. And this book says, boundaries help us feel safer and more secure. And all connections must start from this safety and security. Sometimes people think that boundary means like pushing people away, but actually boundaries are what allows us to connect deeper because we feel safe, we feel respected. And I say Taoist Meditation Center organization, I think about two boundaries in particular, because physical boundaries come at more intuitively. You know, like it would be kind of weird if I like screwed up the Lisa and like broke my cheek against hers. It would be just weird. But some of the boundaries are often disrespected regularly, and it's good to flesh it out what those are so that we can keep those in mind as we co-create the space. And intellectual boundaries are about our thoughts, beliefs, and ideas and how they're respected. And they're also about our access to information, idea, opportunities to learn. So I'd like to think that DMC space, people can talk about different beliefs and ideas, feeling like they're respected rather than somebody sitting on the seat gets to say what to believe, what to think. And creating that space is so important for people to really tune into themselves. And spiritual boundaries, that's a big one. I'm wanting DMC to be a space where everybody's spiritual boundaries are respected. And this is what Dr. Faith Harper writes about spiritual boundaries. Spiritual boundaries are about our belief system, how we practice them, and what we choose to share around those beliefs. It's a little different from intellectual boundaries because spirituality is our human experience of purposeful belonging. It has to do with community, sense of I belong here. This self in relation to something bigger than our own emotional, intellectual experiences. This is often be a point of vulnerability for many people because often the conversation is larger than individual experience. This is where some spiritual organization may not do a great job respecting everybody's spiritual boundaries. And the violation can look in so many different forms. If someone is being forced to pray when they don't want to, that's a violation. Not letting someone who wants to pray, who wants to pray, not pray, is also a violation. So it's very individual experience. And in that, respect for those boundaries allows the space to be where everybody wants to be where they want to be, believe what they want to feel, do what they want to do. That is a safe place for people to truly attune to themselves, instead of going with the flow of the space, what everybody else is doing. And this is a more new, perhaps, like culture that I'd like to add to this space, that is trauma sensitive mindfulness. And I think DMC was already practicing it even before I stepped up as a center director. But these are interesting ones to reflect on because often meditation conversation can be plugged into the theme of discipline, like how do you sit still for however long. But this conversation to me is important in terms of creating a space for self-alignment. One is people are encouraged to stay within the window of tolerance. If meditation gets too difficult or activating or upsetting, it's actually encouraged to discontinue the practice. Allowing shifting of attention to support stability. What that means is that we are not encouraging people in trauma sensitive mindfulness. The encouragement isn't to focus on one pointedness, whether that be breath or third eye point or wherever that may be, but rather if you find yourself having a hard time or difficult memory enters, shifting attention is encouraged because that helps you to feel solid as a mountain, perhaps, rather than feeling shaken and uncertain. The third is to keep the body in mind. Some of the conversation that I want to give nuance to is to sometimes encouragement you might hear in different meditation tradition is that if you feel discomfort in your body, observe it and just observe the discomfort continuously. But that can be unkind to the body, and especially for the people who are struggling, that can be destabilizing and ultimately not a mindful practice. And this one I really love. In trauma sensitive mindfulness, the invitation is to understand and invite the social context into the meditation space. And that social injustice affects everyone differently. And becoming aware of that and keeping that in the space is important in creating a space where everybody feels safe and truly can attune to themselves so that we practice that before getting out there in the world at large. I'm happy to report, even though I was using other sources, that Plum Village tradition also promotes agency, safety, and respect. This is pulled from third mindfulness training out of 14 mindfulness trainings that order of interviewees are invited to reflect on. It goes something like this. Be aware of the suffering brought about when we impose our views on others. We are determined not to force others, even our children, by any means whatsoever, such as authority, threat, money, propaganda, or indoctrination, to adopt our views. We are committed to respecting the rights of others to be different and choose what to believe and how to decide. We will, however, learn to help others to let go of and transform fanaticism and narrowness through experience. I was actually thinking maybe withholding some resources that I can use to co-create the space and have emotional engagement with some of the causes that I'd like to invite all of us to reflect on. So in that spirit, I'll be sharing what guides me to create a culture that's inclusive and promoting connection to our inner reality. So I will be talking about something probably kind of upsetting to hear, but to reassure everyone that I'm in a good relationship with the hardship I experienced, I wanted to unpack the concept of inclusivity from the heart of Buddha's teaching that is included in my Dharma name that I reflect on. But inclusivity, even though in English it might sound like being inclusive of people of all gender, orientation, identity, ethnicity, and so on. But in the context of Buddhism, there's a additional meaning of the word that I think is relevant in our reflection tonight. I don't read Sanskrit, so I hope this is right. Kushanti, the inclusiveness, is the capacity to be happy even when confronted with difficulty. And Kushanti has the capacity to, the one with Kushanti has the capacity to offer light and a sense of joy to herself and those around her. Even when she enters hell, she will lighten up the hell with the sound of her laughter. This is Thich Nhat Hanh's writing, talking about Kushanti, and it's pretty metal. And I want to, I think of this to be part of my personality. And I'd like to share that before I talk about what I'm about to talk about. And I also think of resilience is like already built into our culture in our opening affirmation saying, may we and all beings transform our suffering. That's resilience to me. So I wanted to bring those concepts in before I share. So I mentioned being a translator in my life, and what that gave me, what kind of skills that it gave me is that I can bridge the people who know the language and experience to people who don't know the language or experience. And in that spirit of translator, what I will be describing so that I can really invite everyone to think about trauma-sensitive space co-creation is some of the child abuse content. And if you know that you get activated, get uncomfortable with a few sentences long description of child abuse, please feel free to exit the space. I'm sorry, I couldn't figure out a system where people can not participate without kind of being noticeable, but that's the invitation here. And I'll hold 3 breaths for people who don't want to hear about some upsetting content that has to do with child abuse to exit the space. The 3 breaths begins now. If anybody had exited, I was gonna ask Lisa to ring the bell when it's time for people to return, but I don't think anybody exited, so proceed. But please know that you can always change your mind as I'm describing something kind of difficult to believe or to hear. So when I first got here, I was still processing my trauma of child abuse. And what that means is that because I was raised from age 8 to 16, regularly being hit with this crazy stuff, baseball bat and golf club. So what that meant is that when the space felt like it was closed off, my heart rate would go up and I would get upset sometimes because I couldn't find a course of exit. And because this kind of really coercive environment, educational system I was plugged into, when I was told to do certain things that are not comfortable to the body, sometimes I would get triggered and I would get really upset. So that could be transformed in this space because there was so much permission to lie down if you need to. If you need to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. If you need to get going after meditation and don't want to do Dharma talk, it's all good. Because the permission was available, I could return to here again and again as an attendee to transform those difficulties with the power of mindfulness. I've gone to other practices that were a little too emphasis being too much on discipline. That was difficult for me to really transform those difficulties with feeling safe. So even though trauma is invisible and people often struggles are invisible, creating space in a preventative way allows people to deeply engage with difficulties, attune to that and transform it. So that's the beauty of the Taoist Meditation Center, and I want us to even get more inclusive towards people carrying invisible pains, invisible sufferings, invisible challenges. And this gentle practice isn't something that is less than practices that are emphasizing the disciplines. This space allows us to really attune to ourselves in an inclusive way for everyone to come. And that space is so necessary as the culture at large can seem and is turning hostile. Thank you for listening. I hope what I'm saying makes sense in terms of why I'm sharing what I'm sharing and why this mission of inclusivity is so important. And here I would love to invite us to reflect so that we can be equipped to our inner connection as we come together and reflect together and before getting out there. These are some questions that I designed so we can reflect on this, or we can attune to ourselves and our tendency larger than just here and now. So this is my question. How often, if any, if you're lucky, do you have to override your inner consent at your current routine life? Examples, just to get the jog our mind, board meeting that extends beyond contract hours, family gathering that brings unwanted polarization that you're supposed to, quote unquote, supposed to sit in. How often do you experience that? Because that can affect you and your connection to your sense of self and agency. I'll display all these questions in the last slide for longer reflection. Next question is, how can you affirm your agency when your inner consent and the situation you face are at odds? If you allow yourself to exit the situation, do you feel like you have more agency? If you put your energy into creating a new agreement, new system, whether that be job, family, whatever, community, does that give you a sense of agency? What are the ways that you can affirm your agency when there is a misalignment? And lastly, we are all plugged into different communities. We don't just belong to DMC. So how can you, if you were to imagine, make the space and communities you already belong more gentle and more self-attunement inducing? So those are the questions that I kind of came up with for us to reflect on for, let's say, next 10 minutes or so in small group if you'd like. But please know that all participation is always optional. If you feel like this is not where I want to go with people that I don't know too well or for any other reasons, know that if you don't mind like eye contacts or place your hand at heart, people get it. But so for those of you who would like to reflect in small group around you, make a group of 3 or 4. That tends to be a good size to talk openly and the space to connect is open now. I will ring a bell after the reflection is over, so Lisa can participate small group too, if she would like. So the 10 minutes begin now. See where the conversation go. You don't have to stick to the questions either. So. How many people are on Zoom? Corey, could you create a, oh, there's only Billy. Corey, would you mind asking Billy if he's willing to talk to you? Does not want to, you don't have to just listen.
Goes to Sally, he's on the speaker.
Oh. Maybe they're too loud.
Sure.
Okay. We can take my laptop. If she wants to.
They're all very interesting. Because I think you can just start with.
Right now, I didn't do an audio. So you were.
Great, like a it's a Helen Lily.
Here today. You don't have to be a break out room.
I'm just afraid that Sal will.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Break up.
So.
Classroom.
It makes you.
Great.
Place one word, they are on the right side, and they do the. Yeah, I mean, they know a lot about. You know, they'd be nice. And then I struggle with how. Those things on, Facebook and walk that out. Right. You know what I mean? So, someone's gonna repeat that and then they're gonna come out. That's where we are. So, it's struggle with it, so yeah, I appreciate your talk. Looks like forward. Yes. Some piece of the 600. Yeah, anybody's question.
After
Anyway, just kind of say a little prayer. Twice, something. Back, you know. And to this one. Yeah.
It's good as there's a large group.
Like, aren't we one with the opposers? It's two people. Yeah.
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 I think about that,
Something.
you know, the responsibility idea of, this idea that are pretty much the same. So we want to
Make fun of.
on both of them. You know, over the years, my grandfather was,
That's why I stay inside sometimes. Just the best decision you can take. You're not. I'm not feeling you all the time. You're also.
that means that I'm not even somewhere in my genetics.
I'm not agreeing. I think it's part of it.
And everybody.
I'm doing it hard and pushing.
And I think that
It's been like the great philosophy of talking.
It's not what.
Well, you know, one of the things.
If I didn't have so probably, I would be.
There's nothing learned about that. I can't be in the state for us. It's not what.
They receive a lot of
Not what.
waters. And they don't
How.
domino effect of the systematic failure in the waters. We can have compassion for them without.
Yes.
But not.
That's a hard part. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
People that are being like.
So.
But then also the.
So.
Right. Oh, no, what's the.
When
It was a well.
Recover from
that.
too strong.
It turns green.
All completely.
There's a dot next to the name.
No.
It's turning green. And that
So
the only thing.
Exactly.
Reading the news and.
Yeah, when you think about everyone agrees with what's. It matters.
Probably just because. to me.
handle that.
Like
And
they
like to
think,
stay
they think I'm
involved
going
in
to.
it.
You know, that's kind of a benefit for everybody, because like the bill there, I get to see who this person is.
Yeah. So-
But.
Yeah. It's all bad. This is the other side. Maybe.
Oxford training.
Right.
I don't have.
Yes. Livelihood isn't. Yeah.
I'm hurtful of their environmental thinking about anger or just.
It's a warrior, I do know about that. And just know that
I don't know what. I'm tempted to do that.
Thankfully. Those, I think those don't.
Sometimes
Are. Positive.
So you put that on your PowerPoint to show us.
That would have been a good idea.
Yeah.
Last time, but,
That's a little bit sort of.
Yeah.
sometimes I look at the.
You can.
My daughter's gotten so good that she says, "Oh, Daddy." No. Well, I love it. We had some. So.
You know how to calm down, be stressed.
It's.
Sign up, yeah. It's come on.
Somebody has. Not some, or you back, they'll
We finish it like.
Thank you.
I got you. No, so.
Recording in progress.
Oh, you can close it, you can close it, you can close the light out. Thank you. Hope everyone had good conversation and reflection, and for those of you who chose not to, please know that your choice is welcome here too. Yeah, thank you for reflecting, participating with difficult topics. As I was sharing with Lisa, that sometimes I find myself wanting to be like, oh, like just if I don't look, it will go away. Kind of like that impulse comes in. So I really appreciated seeing you engaging and reflecting. And if today's not the day, that's okay too. So I talked about a lot of conceptual thing and mindfulness. We try to like engage with our centering senses, spaciousness. So in that spirit, I wanted to close my talk portion with first message of gratitude and a quick excerpt of a poem. So thank you for adding to this well of collective wisdom and adding your presence to this community. And may we all attune to ourselves, one another, and co-create the space that everybody can feel at home. This is a poem by Rumi, Islamic scholar, Sufi mystic poet. Out beyond ideas of right and wrong, there is a field. I'll meet you there. May we meet each other where they are, exactly where they are, here and now, and make space for one another. Come together. Okay, that's my talk.
Sorry for ruining your punchline.
You didn't know
I
it.
love that.
Like,
I love that poem.
I do too. Your laughter is part of it. Yeah,
Sure.
no, like truly, when I read poetry readings, like I love my mentor laughing. So we are close to the end of the night. I'll do some announcements. Okay. So House Meditation Center is a nonprofit organization that relies on your donations. And we also really benefit from having an accurate head counts. So if you didn't get a chance to, please sign in and donate what you can on your way out. Our suggested donation is 20 because of our operational costs. But please know that our mission is mindfulness living for all. So if donating 20 affects your financial health in a way that you reduce the numbers of you coming here, please adjust and donate the way that allows you to have the practice the way you that is good for you. And there's a QR codes everywhere that you can use to sign in and donate however you see fit. And for those of you who are in the financially comfortable situation, please consider donating, doubling the amount to cover for the friends who are unable to donate so that the center can keep doing what we do well here. And there's some events on the calendar that you can check out. I will keep that one concise because I didn't prepare to read it out loud, but please know that there's a workshop on mindfulness, some other connecting spaces that we create besides our core gathering. And I will use, because to me, this is part of the conversation. I'm having punk shows around the town because I also believe that sometimes my mindfulness practice is screaming from the top of my lungs about how things are wrong. So if you're curious, come talk to me. I'd be happy to share, but I'll leave it as that. Any community announcements or anything that I'm missing that you'd like to invite in? Now is a good time.
What is mindful May?
What is Mindful May? So this time around is going to be focusing on the fundraising portion. That means I will be releasing a statement that is essentially part of the government of this time of talk that we are working on upgrading our inclusivity mission by making it more trauma sensitive. And to do that, we need your support. So it will be largely fundraising, but there will be some events that are like your sound bath, but also there's a different community bringing their own sound immersion practice here. So there will be some events that are going to be published on the website soon. And I am in talks with religious trauma therapists to see what kind of workshop we can create here to serve our population, because I often hear that something that our attendees struggle with. So those are the things that are brewing as of now. Thanks for asking. Any other public announcements or anything like that? Once, twice. If that's the case, I will guide our attention to our program. Before we do that, Though, please know that I'll be in the lobby area. Feel free to come chat with me, ask me any questions, give me any suggestions. I'm here to connect. So now I'll turn it over to Lisa.
Countless things without degree, ceaseless afflictions without to end. Endless goals without to compare. This path of awakening we vow to realize. I have a, thank you so much.